Alright, I'm late, but here I am. Friday. Casual Friday, in fact. And, yeah, the news. What's going on? 70 degrees when I woke up this morning. And now it's below 40. And I woke up, that said, I woke up around 5 a.m., so still, it's what, 11:25 a.m., 30-degree drop in 4 hours is, I don't know. Weather seems like medium talk these days. Anyway, the Washington Post. Democracy dies in darkness, don't it? Today's going to be partly sunny and windy. Does look windy. Those trees is swaying. Might have to take a little Utvalen walk around. All right. Friday, February 18th, 2022. Left-wing ideas ebb ahead of midterms. Many Democrats shun, defund, and other proposals popular in Trump era. Yeah, I've noticed that. I think the Democrats need to go after corporate greed. They seem unwilling to do that. And so instead of, trying to do something that's popular amongst people on both sides, they're just playing towards the right again. I think both parties are kind of out of their minds, it seems like. Disease experts preach caution to a weary America. Those who support continuing restrictions facing increasing backlash. Yeah, I've noticed that. I'll probably read that. Why are they facing increasing backlash? That's a good question. I guess people just, we're kind of tired of being stuck inside. I gotta say, I kind of like the masks at grocery stores. I hope the masks stay on planes. I don't want to breathe your breath. I also don't want to work for you. Don't vote for me. Russia retreat called a ruse. Love the alliteration. Biden again warns attack is imminent. Continuing buildup near Ukraine dashes hopes. Putin definitely is making the West look idiotic. We keep saying the attack is imminent. We're evacuating, diplomats, and still nothing. I think we in the West think that Putin's holding all the cards here, but in reality, he's kind of backed into a corner. He's got a single commodity economy. Adding Ukraine kind of helps his economy be a little bit more diverse. And when they, had protests and went away from his kind of, what's it called? His president, his handpicked president for Ukraine, he lost his mind. Man, I need some coffee. Maybe waking up at sunrise isn't good for my productivity. Okay, Bowser's popularity drops as concerns over DC crime rise. But poll shows most back Mayor's job performance as she pursues a third term. My biggest issue with Bowser here in DC was her rhetoric around developers. But, I guess she hasn't done a horrible job. Legacy of these Olympics, a teen's torment. Figure skater Camila Valieva weeps after finishing fourth. Anna Sherbakova, top middle, won gold. Alexandra Trusova, top left, got silver. And Kaori Sakamoto got bronze. Figure skating is the one thing I don't really follow in the Winter Olympics, so I don't know. Ruling may put Trump depositions on fast track. Civil and criminal probes in New York center on family business dealings. Interesting. I am curious because I've been saying that Trump was a con man since the day he was elected. I was ostracized. by those I was working with at the time. Anyway, how do you feel about TYE stock market and interest rates? How do you feel about the stock market and interest rates? Right now I'm feeling pretty good about it. I've been playing the stock market like a fiddle the past couple weeks. Thinking about getting a new car. But how do I feel about it? I guess that's a different question. I mean, I think if you look at I tend to track the S&P 500. I think it's a better index than the Dow Jones. And if you look at it over the past 2 years, it's seemed to have detached from any type of reality, meaning it's completely detached from, classical measurements of price over earnings of stocks, that kind of thing. I think what we're seeing right now is either a correction towards a more accurate valuation of many companies, or we're seeing just a blip before it continues up into infinity. I don't know exactly, but how do I feel? I don't know. I feel like the stock market is a pretty good indicator of general emotional sentiment among the capitalists. So if you can kind of get into the capitalists, the big boys that have all the money, if you can get into their head and how they're feeling, then it becomes a little easier to predict, how it's going to move over the next week or month. But, I do have the help of a AI to address hedge fund sentiments, Satura Veritas. Learn more about our services at SaturaVeritas.com. We do have financial research stuff with our AI, and that's what I use. So I feel pretty good about it, I guess. Interest rates, I thought that interest rates should have been rising since about 2003 after the 9/11 dip. It did not make sense to me why they kept interest rates at almost nothing throughout the early 2000s and 2010. 2010 makes sense because we had the big crash in 2007, 2008. But I thought that big crash could have been avoided had they started easing had they started reversing quantitative easing in the early 2000s. It didn't make sense why, in a growing economy, we would continue to lower interest rates, because then you take away your monetary toolbox when something like the Great Recession happens. It just seemed like a handout to banks to me. So I think I'd rather have interest rates where I could save money in a savings account with a bank at 10% interest rates versus what do I get now on Wells Fargo savings? I think 0.05% interest rates. That's why I have a couple CDs and stuff. Especially with inflation, what it is right now. Why do we not have a higher interest rate? I don't know. I have a bachelor's degree. I don't know these things. Barely also. Don't vote for me. I don't know much of anything. Game of Plants thrown. Finally, yes, that's what I was going for. You're the first person that kind of saw I was going for kind of the Iron Throne with the swords, but with a plant. That was the vibe I was going for. All right, top news at the bottom. Protests in Canada. Police said action to bring an end to the demonstrations that have paralyzed Ottawa was imminent. Yeah, I think what they're doing is they're going to carpet bomb them. They're not. But they are freezing their bank accounts. I don't think that's a good thing. All right. The Nation. Leondra Kruger, a potential Biden pick for the Supreme Court, is seen as a liberal who takes a careful, thoughtful approach to the law. Again, I already have who I think they should pick, but we'll read about Leondra. Florida's House approved a bill banning abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Now, my opinion on abortion is kind of nuanced. I think we should be having more abortions. I just don't know that women should be the ones to choose whether they have an abortion or not. So I'm anti-life and anti-choice. Again, don't vote for me. Nice wig. It's actually AI-generated hair. All right. The world. France announced it will withdraw troops from Mali after nearly a decade of fighting. An extremist threat there that has surged in recent years. Washington Post, you're going to have to work on your sentence structure there. The economy. Federal regulators investigated sudden, unexpected braking in Tesla vehicles after fielding hundreds of complaints from consumers. Yeah, I don't think that self-driving's quite ready yet. And aloha to Kauai. And the Dow plunged more than 600 points as the Russia-Ukraine crisis continued to weigh heavily on global markets. I hope you listened to the bears on Wall Street Bets, because we were telling you. You could have made some good money. The region here. Anything interesting? A federal judge found the district in contempt for inadequate special education for students with disabilities in the D.C. jail. Wow. And finally, in the weekend section, far from flashy experiences, the paintings by the lauded master sprinkled across the D.C. region invite quiet contemplation away from crowds. I might have to go see that. I've always been a fan of Van Gogh. Thought about cutting off my own ear. Haven't done it yet, but maybe then I'd hear better from the other ear. Drinking some human liquid. Definitely not an AI-generated avatar here on the internet. All right. Let's read about the Democrats. Get me all sorts of riled up. Left-wing ideas ebb ahead of midterms. Many Democrats shun, defund, and other proposals popular in Trump era by Sean Sullivan and David Weigel. As Democrats look fearfully towards the midterm elections, many of the party's candidates, strategists, and voters are recoiling from some of the left-wing proposals that gained prominence during the Trump administration. I got an idea for you Democrats. Why don't you go after corporate greed? I think that'd be probably pretty exciting and popular among people on both sides of the aisle. That said, I will be a trust buster. I'm going to break up many of these companies. Don't vote for me. Probably will break up Amazon. Sorry, Bezos. Also, Bezos, I will be confiscating your yacht and turning it into the presidential yacht once I'm president of the United States of America, unfortunately. While they helped channel widespread anger with the former president's rhetoric and policies while he was in office, many Democrats now see them as too extreme and harmful to Democratic prospects this fall. Others who opposed them previously are speaking up more emphatically. The result is a growing backlash against more liberal office holders, challengers, and plans. Wow, the chat's going wild. And Reddit. If you missed me yesterday, that's because I couldn't get on Reddit. And feel free to follow me on Twitter. It's kind of unvarnished, stupid thoughts I have I put on Twitter, but it's also at A Freeman's View. And if I'm streaming somewhere else, like yesterday I was streaming on YouTube, I will let you know. Anyway, in multiple states, Democrats running in competitive areas are scrambling to push back against the defund the police movement, embraced by far-left activists, with some forced to try explaining past associations with the controversial slogan. When they came out with that slogan, I don't know who I told, but I was yelling into the ether that they should be using the slogan, rethink the police, because we need to rethink what the police have to deal with, especially in terms of mental health crises. Defund the police is not going to be a popular slogan because it requires explaining. And to quote one of my top 3 least favorite presidents, Ronald Reagan, when you're explaining, you're losing in politics. All right, I don't really want to read more about the Democrats. It's going to make me annoyed. Disease experts preach caution to weary America. Those who support continuing restrictions face increasing backlash. What do y'all think? Do y'all want to keep wearing a mask? By Joel Achenbach. Great name. The masks are coming off Thursday at Disneyland and Disney World. The theme parks are the latest places to say the pandemic has reached a point at which indoor masking is no longer required for people who are vaccinated. Another sign the nation's health emergency isn't what it was in 2020, 2021, or even January 2022. How fast things change. Blue state governors are lifting mask mandates. So is Muriel E. Bowser, Democrat, mayor of the nation's capital. And everyone saw what happened Sunday at the Super Bowl in the crowded, sort of outdoors environment of SoFi Stadium. Even though the Los Angeles County Health Department had said masks were required, just about the only people with their faces covered were the ones wearing helmets. What's that? I missed you. You need to tell me when you're going live streaming. Veva World. Well, that's what I was saying is follow me on Twitter at a Freeman's View. I wouldn't recommend it because my Twitter is stupid, but I will tell you not to vote for me on Twitter as well, but I'll let you know if I'm streaming elsewhere. Also, I stream daily on Twitch. I think 3 people or so, maybe sometimes up to 12 people watch me on Twitch. All right, so what is this? What's the point of this article? Some of this shit in the newspaper is just overly verbose. But the easing of the coronavirus pandemic's grip is hardly a serene moment. The country is witnessing a broad backlash from many conservatives and libertarians, not only against the ongoing mask mandates, but also against the past 2 years of public health measures, including school closures designed to suppress the spread of the virus. As the fall elections approach, the virus itself isn't the hot topic so much as the response to it. Well, we do like to relitigate the past here in this country, don't we? We'll just spend, the ice caps are melting, but let's just spend the next century figuring out who was right and who was wrong over the last century. That's another reason I don't want to work for you. Another reason I don't want to be president. Please do not vote for me. I find the American people abrasive, uncouth, and quite annoying. It turns out that winding down a pandemic response is, in many ways, much harder than launching a response when the virus is new, fresh, and at its scariest. In the pell-mell rush for the pandemic exits, even some people who were formerly supportive of public health measures designed to suppress the virus now don't want anyone standing in their way. Quote, "Public health is sort of the bearer of bad news. This is basically a kill-the-messenger phenomenon," said Yale University epidemiologist Greg Gonsalves, who has been a vocal proponent of continuing measures to protect the most vulnerable communities. The virus is still killing people in startling numbers, although infections are dropping fast, and hospitalizations too. Deaths from COVID-19 have not fallen at the same pace, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, I don't know that we need to read a whole another page about that. Basically, people are annoyed that they were inconvenienced over the last 2 years, and now they're lashing out. All right. What else we got? Sumo, I know you're on top of my folder, but let's see what my assistant has printed out for me today. I already read that yesterday. Okay. Anything interesting? What COVID taught this mid-sized city about ending homelessness. Investors brought up a record share of homes last year. I do want to read this. If any millennials are watching and you're having trouble affording housing, this might give you some insight over what's happening in the housing market. Investors bought up a record share of homes last year by Kevin Schwall and Jonathan O'Connell. Last year, investors bought nearly 1 in 7 homes sold in America's top metropolitan areas, the most in the last 2 decades, according to the realty company Redfin. Those purchases come at a time when would-be buyers across the country are seeing wildly escalating prices, raising the question of what impact investors are having on prices for everyone else. Investors were even more aggressive in the final 3 months of the year, buying 15% of all homes sold in the 40 markets. Real estate investors can be large corporations, local companies, or wealthy individuals, and they generally don't live in the properties they are buying. Some look to flip the houses to new buyers, while others rent them out. Neighborhoods where a majority of residents are black have been heavily targeted, according to Washington Post analysis of Redfin data. Last year, 30% of home sales in majority black neighborhoods were to investors, compared with 12% in other zip codes, the Post analysis shows. We know historically that places where minority lives are undervalued and lower priced, said Redfin's Shiar Bokhari. That, he said, makes them more attractive to investors, driving up prices for residents. And then they buy them, and then they rent them back out to you at a much higher price. Here we go. One of the reasons housing prices have gotten so out of control is that corporate America sensed an opportunity, said Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrat of Ohio, last week at a hearing of the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, a committee he chairs. Brown took direct aim at private equity firms and corporate landlords in particular. They bought up properties, they raised rents, they cut services, they priced out family home buyers, and they forced renters out of their homes, he said. Investors have been snapping up homes in and around downtown Cleveland at a staggering rate, putting 3 of the city's zip codes among the top 15 nationally in the rate of investor purchases last year. Sally Accordi Martin, the longtime former housing director of South Euclid, a small city east of Cleveland, testified at the hearing that a majority of the city's roughly 1,600 rental units are now owned by companies from other states and that tenants have suffered as a result. Martin said the city passed a series of ordinances aimed at stopping predatory behavior to limited effect. One provision called Pay to Stay allows tenants to pay any unpaid rent and fees up until their eviction hearing. Unlike mom-and-pop landlords, large out-of-state investors typically don't have much empathy for their tenants, she said. Residents can be a day late in paying rent and face an eviction notice. I don't think we need to read more, but you get the point. The rent is too damn high. I think that guy was onto something. The rent is too damn high. Don't vote for me, though, because, would I have to go up against private equity firms, too? I'm going to be taking on Bezos as president. Going to be dealing with geopolitical issues and then domestic issues. Then I have to deal with all of the unhappy Americans who don't like what I'm doing. It's just too much. Don't vote for me. I don't want the job. Russia retreat called a ruse. Biden again warns attack is imminent. Continuing buildup near Ukraine dashes hopes by Ellen Nakashima, Shane Harris, Alex Horton, and Michael Birnbaum. U.S. officials have obtained intelligence that Russia's announced military pullback from Ukraine's border was a deliberate ruse to mislead the United States and other world powers, 4 officials said Thursday, as President Biden offered a bleak warning that the Kremlin will launch an attack in the next several days. I would think that we could just see whether they pulled back troops or not based on satellites. Like, what are we paying for in this country when we spend 50% of our discretionary funds towards defense? I would hope that we have a satellite that can see this shit. That said, I am pro-deep state. I don't know why anyone would want a shallow state, especially as the next president. I don't want to inherit the Oval Office and have a shallow cesspool of a state. I'd rather have a nice, deep, cold water, state. Don't vote for me. Gotta go now. Take Grandpa to the doctor. See you on Monday. Thanks, Yankee in Paradise. Good to see you. And I love the shirt, by the way. The souring optimism that it would be possible to avoid conflict came just days after a flicker of hope when Russian leaders signaled they would begin to draw down the more than 150,000 troops they have massed at Ukraine's border. That announcement was accompanied by Kremlin-produced videos of what they... 812. Just read the newspaper on an iPad, by the way. This is annoying. They claimed were tanks and other heavy equipment leaving border areas by rail car. U.S. officials now believe it was an effort to mask Russia's true intentions. All 4 officials spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive intelligence. Russian forces have continued to increase near Ukraine's frontier, officials said, and shelling escalated in eastern Ukraine, adding to increasingly gloomy attitudes. Yes, hello. Attitudes in Washington and European capitals that had hoped to forestall war. Russia is continuing military exercises in Belarus is in easy reach of Ukraine's border. That intelligence officials fear could give the cover for an invasion. The exercises are due to end on Sunday. How do we conclude? Most intelligence officials painted a gloomy picture of what they were seeing. Quote, "Most military indicators are in the red," said one Western intelligence official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss confidential assessments. "It all comes down to a political decision about whether to launch an attack. The Russians are actively fabricating the casus belli. This activity seems like more than just a military exercise." In Belarus, President Alexander Lukashenko injected some uncertainty into previous pledges that the massive Russian force conducting military maneuvers there would withdraw when the drills conclude this weekend. He said he would consult Friday with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow on how long the troops should stay. He also did not rule out maintaining some Russian military equipment permanently in his country, contradicting previous Belarusian statements that all of it would be withdrawn. Interesting. Well, it sounds like Alexander Lukashenko is a little cuckboy to Putin. Sorry, Alexander, you're no longer a strong man. You're a vassal state for Russia. Sorry that happened to you. What else am I reading? I kind of want to read about Trump, but I don't really want to read about Trump. I'm tired of that man-child. GOP uses another nominee obstacle. Democrats worry hitch with Fed picks could be repeated with high court. The Republicans just don't care. They just want to stop any functioning of government and then point to government. I mean, this is the basic Republican playbook. Make the government ineffective, then point at the ineffective government and say government's ineffective in order to give cover to when they do more stuff to make the government more ineffective. I think the best example of that is the U.S. Postal Service. When Nixon passed the Post Office Reorganization Act, I think it's called. Anyway, the post office used to be a cabinet-level position. The Postmaster General was on the cabinet. And then in that Reorganization Act, they put in this basically poison pill into the post office, which makes it so that the post office has to pre-fund pensions on anyone they hire the moment they hire them, which is something that no other business in the world has to do, and it makes it very difficult for the post office to be profitable. I don't really like people who govern in bad faith, and I would say that the Republicans do that. The Democrats are just ineffective. Don't vote for me. Minnesota, hundreds gather for Amir Locke funeral. Hundreds of people joined in song and prayer Thursday at the funeral of Amir Locke, a 22-year-old black man who was shot by Minneapolis police serving a search warrant. Whew. Yeah, Minneapolis. We do need a reckoning in police, though. New York, trooper sues Cuomo in sexual harassment case. The state trooper who said former Governor Andrew M. Cuomo sexually harassed her while she worked on his personal security detail has sued him in federal court. Old meatball there. Coast Guard offloads $1 billion in narcotics. A U.S. Coast Guard vessel offloaded more than 30 metric tons of cocaine and marijuana, reportedly worth over $1 billion, that was seized at sea during a months-long deployment off the coast of South America. The haul was one of the biggest in recent memory. It also highlights a recent surge in narcotics coming from Colombia, a close U.S. ally and the world's top producer of cocaine. I was wondering why my shipment of cocaine and marijuana was late. I guess I know now. 19 officers indicted for assault in 2020 protests. Interesting. Would you read suggestions? Sure, I'll read. I like to read. I don't know what you mean by suggestions. State GOP school bills unsettle LGBTQ-friendly Orlando. After a gunman killed 49 people at the Pulse nightclub in 2016, breaking the heart of the city, Orlando created some of the most LGBTQ-friendly public schools in the country. The Orange County District began hosting an annual Gay Pride Month, complete with supportive notes on campus marquees and bulletin boards. School administrators made sure every high school and middle school student had a gay-straight alliance, and students were supported if they wanted to use the pronouns that matched their gender identity. But amid an increasingly bitter debate over school curriculum and textbooks, Orlando area educators find themselves in a pitched battle with GOP leaders and emboldened conservative activists over how to teach and support LGBTQ students. Interesting. Florida's Republican-controlled legislature is considering a measure that would ban discussions of sexual orientation or gender identity with elementary students in public schools. Parents would also be able to sue districts that expose their children to lessons that are not age appropriate. Interesting. I don't know I don't have kids yet, so I don't know how I feel about that. Potential Biden pick, liberal, but not so easily defined. Leandra Kruger. Shortly after Leandra Kruger took her seat on the California Supreme Court in 2015, she faced a test that would define the way she approached the appellate bench, political ideology, and the law. Then Governor Jerry Brown, Democrat, was seeking to build a lasting liberal majority on the 7-member court. He plucked Kruger from the Justice Department in Washington. From Stanford Law School, he chose Mariano Florentino Souliar. The two were greeted warmly by California liberals when they took their seats. Within months, Kruger had confounded those same supporters. The rules of the California Supreme Court allow new justices to vote on rehearing petitions in some cases, even if they did not sit on the original cases. Oh, it's a leaf. Yeah, give me some suggestions. I'll read them. Kruger, however, did not vote. Wait, hold on. Where am I? Kruger and Souliar had a handful to consider. They agreed to rehear a death penalty case that the court eventually overturned. Kruger, however, did not vote with Souliar to rehear another case that was important to California's gay community. The case involved inconsistencies regarding when someone convicted of a sex crime had to join the sex offender registry, a tangle of rules that many legal observers said were rooted largely in decades-old homophobia. The case known as Johnson v. Department of Justice was not reheard, in large part because of Kruger's vote. Interesting. So she's not a singular thing. What's the conclusion here? There is no conclusion. I just don't have time to read a full page on it. Democrats shun left-wing ideas as midterms approach. We read at the beginning of this. Some of the moves, here's the conclusion. Some of the moves were overruled or reversed, but the reaction was nevertheless intense and compounded by budget problems and the lengthy absence of in-person learning many San Francisco students faced during the pandemic, even as schools in other areas opened back up more fully. In an interview at the home where they ran the campaign, Raj and Louis-Jean described being overjoyed when Biden defeated President Donald Trump in 2020. Louis-Jean, 44, said that defeating the board's most left-wing members, President Gabriela Lopez and Vice President Allison Collins, would spare the party deeper political problems down the road. I don't want Allison Collins and Gabriela Lopez to be the face of the progressive movement, she said. The White House, which is seeking to set the tone for Democratic candidates this year, was careful in its comments in the wake of the San Francisco recalls. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Wednesday that Biden trusts the role of teachers and educators across the country and the kind of curriculum that they are provided, but also sought to show sympathy for struggling parents. As the verdict in San Francisco, she characterized that the local decision about school board leaders. Okay, that's not a great conclusion. So what's the point? That Democrats are backing away from school closures and stuff? I guess, if I'm a parent and I'm stuck at home with my kids all day for the pandemic, I would be pretty annoyed too. Yeah, I see it. Texting through an insurrection. Thousands of frantic messages that might have otherwise been lost to history are now key to piecing together a picture of the events surrounding the January 6th attack. Should we read some of these texts? Here's some text. Sean Hannity to Mark Meadows. We can't lose the entire White House counsel's office. I do not see January 6th happening the way he is being told. After the 6th, he should announce will lead the nationwide effort to reform voting integrity. I don't know what that means. The night before the rally, Hannity's private concerns... Oh, sorry, this was December 31st, Sean Hannity texted that. Then on the night before the rally, Hannity's private concerns about the day ahead escalated in another text to Meadows. Meadows was the chief of staff for Trump, if you don't know. Quote, I'm very worried about the next 48 hours. Pence pressure, White House counsel will leave. So they knew what was about to happen, it sounds like. Anyway, here's another text on January 6th. Can you make this statement? Ask the people to peacefully leave the Capitol. And then some anonymous members to Mark Meadows. It's really bad up here on the Hill. Mark, he needs to stop this now. Another member of Congress, tell them to go home. They were not happy. Yeah, I mean, they had a giant mob bearing down on their throats. James O'Keefe to Mark Meadows. Thousands registered to vote at two church addresses in Atlanta. These admissions were obtained today, James. What else is going on? Oh, here we go. Donald Trump's son to Mark Meadows. He's got to condemn this ship ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough. I'm pushing it hard, I agree. We need an Oval Office address. He has to lead now. It's gone too far and gotten out of hand. Brian Kilmeade to Mark Meadows. Please get him on TV, destroying everything you have accomplished. Laura Ingraham said, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He's destroying his legacy. I don't think Trump really cares about legacy. What does that say? Can we have a home tour? Probably not today. My home's a bit of a mess. You know, I usually clean up on the weekends, and so Friday, it's kind of gotten a little messy. Maybe, though. I think maybe in the future I'd do a home tour. I also like my privacy, to be honest with you. Florida House approves ban on abortions after 15 weeks. Here's an idea, Republicans. Why don't you let ladies figure out what they want to do with their own bodies? Backlog of tax returns prompts IRS to scrap closure plan for Austin facility. Watchdog groups had warned of potentially severe consequences. All right. Bowser's approval rating down from past polls. We knew that. Special counsel's target asks judge to toss case. Sussman's team says there's no criminality in his FBI interactions. That is the most vague headline and sub-headline I've ever seen. I have no idea what they're talking about. There's multiple special counsels right now, Washington Post. The lawyer charged by special counsel John Durham with lying to the FBI when he passed along information about then-candidate Donald Trump has asked the judge to dismiss the case, saying that even if he did what Durham alleged, it was not a crime. Not true, it is a crime. You always work on the newspaper grind set. I try. I got to keep up on the news, you know. U.S. will surge millions of dollars in vaccine support to 11 African countries. That's good. Well, 250 million is not all that much. That's like, what, 13 tomahawks? A race for pandemic exits as thousands die daily. All right, that's enough. Enough about the pandemic. Cut off from Ukraine, not recognized by Russia, on the front lines of brewing bloodshed. Where is this? In Donetsk? Yep. By Ruby Mellon. Marsha lives... this is going to be too long. Actually, it's not that long. Let's read it. Marsha lives on the front line. Since war broke out in eastern Ukraine between Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed separatists in 2014, the 82-year-old woman has witnessed untold tragedies in her neighborhood. Oktyabrskaya, which lies some 1,000 feet from the perimeter that seals off the separatist-controlled enclave of Donetsk from the rest of Ukraine. Bullet holes line Masha's kitchen. Scars from shrapnel mark her body. Damn, this old lady is a fucking badass. Sitting in a small home where she lives with her daughter and grandson, her eyes brimmed with tears. I survived 2 wars, the Second World War and now, her voice caught. Nobody knows anything about the future, Masha continued. We live in the unknown. Masha lives in the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, cut off from Ukraine because of the region's pro-Moscow government and not officially recognized by Russia. The DPR remains in limbo. The economy is in shambles. More than 3,000 civilians have been killed since 2014, according to the United Nations. A buildup of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border has put Kiev and Western allies on alert. Now some analysts are wondering if Russian President Vladimir Putin will recognize self-declared republics like Donetsk. But its residents do not seem to care where they belong. They just want to belong somewhere else. Even as tension was rising along the border on January 31st, a curfew was lifted that for 8 years kept people inside starting at 11 p.m. Nightclubs have started to reopen. Those lucky enough to find them drink and dance like they have not been able to in nearly a decade, because they haven't. This night, the room blared with the beats of Daft Punk and Donna Summer's I Feel Love. Oh, it's a good song. But the fighting is never far from the minds of people here. On a sunny day, Sina, 75, was dancing in a park. Her husband had died 40 days ago, and she was celebrating being out of her official mourning period. There is war, and we are dancing, she said. How else? Otherwise, you cannot endure it. That's a good reminder for this Friday. Go out and dance in a park, y'all. On a government-chaperoned tour, reporters were taken to the Russian Orthodox Iversky Monastery. It was heavily shelled during the deadly 2015 battle between Ukrainian fighters and pro-Russian separatists for the nearby Donetsk airport. Shooting still continues almost daily. Nuns still live in the building, and 2 men maintain what is left of the storied structure and its neighboring graveyard. Denis Pushilin, the head of DPR's separatist government, has been in power since 2018 when his predecessor, Alexander Shakharshenko, was killed by a bomb blast at a cafe. He faces an uphill battle governing with the breakaway region cut off from the trade routes it depended on before the war. Donetsk remains an industrial town, with factories and plants, but siloed from Ukraine and subject to Russian tariffs. These manufacturers are struggling to stay afloat. At the Don Frost factory, which makes refrigerators, workers said they were producing some 670 fridges a day, about half of their output before the war. They can sell their goods only to Russia, within the DPR, or to the nearby separatist region called the Luhansk People's Republic. While the region is rich in coal, this metallurgical plant is also struggling. It was forced to shut down from March to August 2020 due to lack of raw materials. In the Donetsk village of Alexandrko, Sergei, a mechanic who fixes gas lines, said while he once supported the DPR, now it does not matter what government he lived under as long as it brought peace. If Ukraine, Italy, America, Russia, or France takes us, I don't care, he said at a local repair shop, while his friend Nikolai fixed his old Siguli. Most important is stability. He's given up looking for an answer for a better future. We don't lose heart, we work. We have no time to give up hope, Sergei said. Well said, Sergei. That's, I think, a point most politicians forget, is that most people just want a stable, happy life. That's why, as president, I will be commencing the Third Continental Congress to try to find a new equilibrium for the Earth's climate over the next millennia. But my guess is that's not going to go as I plan it. Please don't vote for me, even though there's nothing I can do to stop myself from being president. What does that say? Russia played everyone. They've sent 7K soldiers more instead of pulling back. Yes, true. Those are some fantastic plants. Thank you. This snake plant is my oldest plant. I've had to repot it 5 times now, and it's about to break the pot it's in. So I actually am going to be breaking it up a little bit, and I have a couple friends who want to get started on having house plants, and I'm going to give them pieces of the snake plant for themselves. So it will go on to spread its joy in other parts of the country. Anyway, elsewhere in the world, Brazil. Death toll hits 110 after flooding and mudslides. Okay. In Kuwait, court strikes down transgender law. Kuwait's constitutional court has struck down a contentious law long used to criminalize transgender people by forbidding the imitation of the opposite sex. And Ecuador is decriminalizing abortions if the woman was raped. Finally, that's good. Maybe they should decriminalize all abortions. Gaza bookstore reopens. An iconic Gaza bookstore destroyed in an Israeli airstrike last year reopened on Thursday, lifting the spirits of its ecstatic owner and a large crowd of well-wishers celebrating the moment. That's exciting. And in Jordan, smuggling crackdown working. The Jordanian military says a crackdown on drug smugglers along the Syrian border is delivering results. What can justify this outfit? I mean, where's the Friday tie? I decided to go casual today. Yeah, that's it. Didn't feel like putting on a tie. Also, if you want the real reason, I got a mole removed from inside my armpit yesterday. It's a little suspicious mole, and so that kind of hurts. And so having kind of like a tight shirt on is bothersome, and so I decided to wear a loose-fitting shirt. Maybe I should try honesty once in a while. Don't vote for me. No one wants an honest president, right? Okay. For Ukraine, joining NATO and EU has been a dream that may never come true. Gotta like the little rhyme there. By Anthony Fiola. Even before the threat of a full Russian invasion, Ukraine's alliance with the that's a typo. Washington Post, if you're watching, got a typo here. You put a D on front of the word alliance. Just wanted to point that out. Ukraine's alliance with the West has cost it dearly. Nearly a decade ago, a civil uprising in Ukraine over President Viktor Yanukovych's shift towards Moscow and rejection of a sweeping deal with the European Union forced him into exile, but not before the massacre of protesters in Kiev's Maidan Square. To punish free-willed Ukrainians, a jilted Russian President Vladimir Putin responded by partitioning their nation, annexing Crimea and staging a de facto occupation of the eastern Donbas region. But still, Ukrainians clung to hope. In 2019, Ukraine even enshrined its will to join the West in its constitution. Ukraine will join the EU. Ukraine will join NATO, declared a jubilant Andrei Parubiy, Ukraine's Speaker of the House, after the measures passed. Western powers, even if never in agreement or fully committed to letting Ukraine in, dangled the hope of access to those rarefied clubs for years. Now even the distant chance that existed before the Ukraine joining NATO or the EU is quickly evaporating. Maybe we should have just let them in the first place, right? I don't know. All right, what's the conclusion? But there's another school of thought, that the West has done most of what it can for Ukraine in the geopolitical context, and its decision to refuse Russian demands for a pledge that would definitively end its NATO and EU dreams should be hailed. At present, the risk of nuclear war makes military confrontation with Russia on the fields of Eastern Europe a non-starter. But the West has kept a light lit in the distant porch for Ukraine, projecting what could be a far-off possibility of a new future with enough internal change in a Putin-free world. With an estimated 150,000 of Putin's troops on Ukraine's frontier, that future may be getting more and more distant. But until there's a Russian flag flying over Maidan Square, it may not be dead. Quote, "You know where I remember hearing that argument? That argument of giving false hope? It was in 1989, when people said we shouldn't give the Poles false hope," Daniel Fried, a former U.S. ambassador to Poland, told me. "Poland will never be free," they said. "They were wrong then, and I think they're wrong about Ukraine now. My argument is that it's worth resisting. It's worth not giving in to Putin." Well, I stand with you, the people of Ukraine, and as president, I'll let you into NATO, because I think I ride horses better than Putin, and as president, I will ride horses shirtless more often than Putin, and that will really put him in his place. So don't vote for me. All right. French troops to leave Mali as political extremists surge. Nation's departure raises questions about who will fill the security void. Yeah, there's a slew of military coups going on over there too near Mali. Might read it later. What time is it? Yeah, I gotta wrap up in the next 20-30 minutes here. An alleged Chinese interference plot stirs fears and smears in Australia. Intelligence officials' warnings comes just a few months ahead of election. Oh yeah, China is trying to. I've read about this before. Okay, Sydney. In a darkened hall inside one of Australia's most secretive buildings, the intelligence chief described a startling plot. A foreign power had recently attempted to interfere in an election. This case involved a wealthy individual who maintained direct and deep connections with a foreign government and its intelligence agencies. Michael Burress, head of the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, warned in a speech last week in Canberra. This agent of interference has roots in Australia, but did the bidding of offshore masters, knowingly and covertly seeking to advance the interests of the foreign power, and in the process undermines Australia's sovereignty. The agent, or puppeteer, had hired someone in Australia and equipped them with hundreds of thousands of dollars from an offshore bank account with the aim of shaping the jurisdiction's political scene to benefit the foreign power, Burgess continued. It was like a foreign interference startup. The head of the ASIO, akin to the FBI in the United States, was careful not to mention the foreign power, the political party targeted, or the location in Australia. But like a spy novel blurb, his deliberately vague account of the foiled plot only sparked further interest. And coming just a few months ahead of what promises to be a close federal election, the speech instantly became fodder for fierce government attacks on the opposition. We now see evidence that the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government, has also made a decision about who they're going to back in the next federal election, Defense Minister Peter Dutton claimed in Parliament the next day, and they have picked this bloke, the leader of the opposition, as their candidate. Yeah, so this is kind of goes to my prediction about how geopolitical strong-arming is going to work in the future. I think it's more about truth and less about bombs and missiles, and we're going to see more of this type of shit. And, you know, the U.S., we have a lot of bombs and missiles, but maybe we should be doing this type of shit, too. Don't vote for me. I will, as president, I may use the full power of the United States military to interfere in other countries' political affairs, much like we've done for a long time. Don't vote for me. All right. So what's the conclusion here? All right. I am shocked and disappointed at the baseless and reckless claim made by Senator Kimberly Kitching, Chow said in a statement. I am a business... so this is from the Chinese guy they're accusing of this. Chow said in a statement, I am a businessman and a philanthropist. I have never had any involvement or interest in interfering with the democratic election process in Australia. Last year, Chow won a defamation case against 2 media outlets over similar spying claims. 5 years of tensions have left Australians much more wary of China, said Kassam, the former diplomat. So you can make these very specific claims in Parliament or on breakfast televisions, and they will resonate in a way they didn't a few years ago. Yet the Labour Party had largely embraced the government's policies towards China, including the submarine deal, she said. And while a Labour victory later this year could provide a circuit breaker for the heated relationship, the plot allegation could also lead a Labour government to feel the need to demonstrate its national security credentials by maintaining a tough line. In its eagerness to score a political win, the Australian government has ignored its own top intelligence chiefs, including Burgess's warnings about infighting, said Fitzgerald, the Chinese politics experts. Quote, it is critical we do not let fear of foreign interference undermine stakeholder engagement or stoke community division, Burgess said in his speech. Were this to happen, it would perversely have the same corrosive impact on our democracy as foreign interference itself. That's a great point and well said. Yeah, you don't want fear to undermine community engagement and stakeholder interest in elections. I agree with that. All right. Children's presence complicates police response to the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa. I guess they can't carpet bomb them, huh? Ottawa police warn of imminent action to disperse Freedom Convoy. What are they going to do? It's time to go, Interim Police Chief Steve Bell, speaking at a news conference, told the protesters who have remained defiant in the face of repeated warning. Your time in our city has come to an end, and you must leave. Bell said the police were hardening the perimeter around the city and had designated a large area as a secure zone where access would be limited to residents, workers, and police officers. Officials have been keen to avoid a repeat of previous weekends when the crowds swell, particularly because this is a long holiday weekend. Alright, so they're going to try to freeze them out. Also, if anyone's watching still, I can't really read what's on these screens, but feel free to ask questions, insult me, comments, curiosities, give me random fun facts, anything like that. I tend to read the chat, and I am working on getting a call-in number, so yeah, that's coming soon, where you can actually call in and we can talk about whatever. White House economists split on inflation cause. Aides differ on whether corporate consolidation played a role in largest price hike in 4 decades. Here's my opinion. Yes, it did. When I was a kid, there was a whole lot more companies than there are now. Even just thinking about the big accounting firms. There used to be 9 big accounting firms. Now there's 4. Yeah, I mean, I think corporate consolidation is definitely affecting prices because they have more monopoly or duopoly power in many more industries. I mean, how many different cell phone companies were there when you were a kid? Singular, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, Nextel. At least 5, or at least 6. Now there's 4? It's not that big of a difference. No, there was only 3, right? Didn't T-Mobile and Sprint merge? Anyway, rambling. Regulators probe Tesla phantom braking issue. Safety agency receives hundreds of complaints involving some models. Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm not ready to get a Tesla yet. I'll stick with my Volvo. Online commerce, U.S. notorious markets lists grow. E-commerce sites operated by China's Tencent Holdings and Alibaba Group were included on the U.S. government's latest notorious markets list of entities that allegedly sell or facilitate the sale of counterfeit goods. I think we all knew that. Wish.com. I've seen some of the stuff they sell on Wish.com doesn't even make any sense. Nissan plans to build EVs in Mississippi. Nissan Motors said it will invest $500 million to retool its U.S. assembly plant near Canton, Mississippi, to build 2 new electric vehicles. And a top executive said the automaker is looking for a U.S. site to build a battery factory. Well, that's exciting. A worker carries tobacco at a farm just outside Harare, Zimbabwe. The country's tobacco selling season is expected to start in March. Hot weather and severe hailstorms caused by climate change are affecting this year's crops. Yikes, okay. And also in business, new U.S. home construction fell in January for the first time in 4 months. Cool. I think I'm getting to the end of the news here. Oh, shit. World Bank arm finances Chinese firms that may use forced labor. Wait, the World Bank isn't all good? An arm of the taxpayer-funded World Bank has provided nearly $500 million in financing to 4 Chinese companies that appear to have employed forced laborers in the country's Xinjiang region, according to a new report. Why is the World Bank financing Chinese companies in the first place? I thought the World Bank doesn't China have its own World Bank? They can finance their own companies. In my opinion. Don't vote for me. Russian teens' tears will be legacy of these Olympics. FAA administrator will step down next month. All right, bye, Sumo. Okay. I don't know how much of these I need to read. I think we're done. I'm going to see what the opinion pieces are saying. What do people say? Josh Rogan, the West and Ukraine must get on the same page. Yes, Josh, that's true. The FDA was wrong to delay vaccines for kids under 5. Who cares? Fareed Zakaria, why is the administration uniting our adversaries? The Biden administration has handled the Ukraine crisis intelligently and effectively, formulating a policy that could be described as deterrence plus diplomacy. It made credible threats about the cost of a Russian invasion and rallied its European allies in an impressive show of unity. And while correctly refusing to promise that Ukraine will be barred from NATO, it has offered to discuss almost anything else, from arms control to missile deployments. This crisis, however, has highlighted a larger strategic failure, one that extends beyond this administration. One of the central rules of strategy is to divide your adversaries, but increasingly U.S. foreign policy is doing the opposite. Earlier this month, in a more than 5,000-word document, China and Russia affirmed a friendship with no limits. The two powers appear to be closer to one another than at any time in 50 years. Yes, that's true. And Russia's building some pipelines to China so that they're not reliant as heavily on the European market to sell their gas. All right, Fareed. Kind of agree with you, at least based on that one paragraph. John M. Barry. I'm not ready to unmask. Here's why. Are you one of those people that wears masks in the park? I'm not. I mean, to be honest, I think we should wear masks on planes indefinitely. I don't want to breathe your air. And I think we should have to wear masks in the grocery store during flu season. So, yeah, don't vote for me. In a moment of peril, clarity. Russia's latest statements on Ukraine are all but a declaration of war. Yeah. Here we go. A stamp of approval. Congress delivers a bipartisan win with the Postal Service Reform Act. I was just ranting about the Postal Service. Okay. Much has been said about Congress's failure to pass voting rights reform and the bulk of President Biden's agenda in the Build Back Better Act. But at least one piece of common sense bipartisan policymaking is moving forward. The Postal Service Reform Act, which passed the House 342 to 92 last week. The Postal Service has struggled with its balance sheet for years, with losses of $160 billion predicted over the next decade. That's because of what I was saying with this pre-funding of pensions. It has more than $200 billion. I mean, it's crazy that the only reason the Postal Service is not making money, think about how many more packages have been being sent recently. All right, let me breathe through this. It has more than $200 billion in liabilities, nearly 3/4 of which stem from a requirement for it to pre-fund retirees' healthcare costs. There it is. This mandate was established in 2006 when the agency was profitable, but falling revenue, largely due to competition from modern technology and declining first-class mail use, has meant the Postal Service has been unable to keep up with payments. The overhauled bill would drop the mandate and require retirees to enroll in Medicare when eligible. The Congressional Budget Office predicts this would save taxpayers $1.5 billion over 10 years, and the bill would also erase $57 billion of the agency's liabilities, establish an online dashboard for delivery times, allow it to offer non-postal services such as hunting and fishing licenses, and mandate service at least 6 days a week. Nice. I do think they should bring back postal banking as well, but I guess that's not in the bill. Okay. Social media is riskier for children than screen time. Yeah, I agree with that. A reflection of persistent racism in our society. What is this? Ahmaud Arbery. Yes, definitely. I think those men are racist. But first, we have a full-page ad from Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries. Thank you, Lazy Boy, for keeping this program afloat. You can see here we got some good deals on chairs for $600, $700, and $800 or $900. Yeah, these look nice. We're all being a little more lazy. Go get some chairs. Hey Jeff, happy weekend. How's it going? Cool shirt you got on. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's going well. Ready for the weekend. Probably gonna go on a hike. And yeah, just kind of excited to chill out. How about you? How's it going wherever you are? Alright, if anyone new is watching, I always end with the horoscopes, which is the most truthful part of the paper. Never anything incorrect in a horoscope because it's so vague, it's impossible. And then I go on to the advice column to just, go away from the news, remind ourselves that interpersonal relationships are important, that kind of thing. My horoscope today, Capricorn. You're busy in the next 4 weeks. You've got things to do, people to see, and places to go. Short trips, increased reading and writing, plus increased interaction with relatives will keep you on the go. Damn straight. Ain't that the truth? Moon alert. Woo, woo, woo. Moon alert. Avoid shopping or making important decisions from 6 till 11 p.m. today. After that, the moon moves from Virgo into Libra. So yeah, between 6 and 11 p.m., you're not going to want to make any important decisions or shop. Could you read Gemini? I can. Gemini, the twins. Once a year, the sun is at the top of your chart for 4 weeks. That time has arrived. This symbolizes that you are in the limelight, and this light is flattering. Obviously, this is an advantage that you can use to go after what it is you want. Pretty good horoscope there, Gemini. Anyone else want their horoscope? Otherwise, I will move on to the advice column. Or I'll go back to horoscopes if somebody chats it. I know the chat runs like 30 seconds behind or something. All right, Carolyn Hacks. The quandary of a daughter's questions. Dear Carolyn, I was emotionally and sexually abused by my stepfather from the age of 15 to 18 when I became pregnant by him. Jesus Christ. I usually... Alright, I'm going to take a break, go back for Taurus. Usually Carolyn Haxes are a little more not so heavy. Taurus, you will be more popular in the next 4 weeks. Count on this. Enjoy increased interaction with friends, as well as more involvement with groups, clubs, and associations. Pretty good horoscope for you, too. Alright, so... Yikes. Anyway, I kept my daughter and moved away from that side of my family who wanted to sweep it all under a rug. I live with my father and stepmother now. My father had moved away, and I didn't really see him much until this happened, but he took me in. I'm still working through all of this with a therapist. My daughter is 4 now and asking questions about her father. I plan to tell her that someone did provide the other half of her DNA along with mine, but that person who provides it is not always meant to be your family. I will say he was not nice enough to be her dad, and some people just aren't nice. My therapist is suggesting that I don't tell her right now, but I disagree. She's a good therapist, but I feel she's wrong on this one. Maybe she's not, but I'm very big on honesty, so I can't see myself lying to my daughter and saying her dad can't be part of her life right now when he can't be a part of her life ever. I will make sure my daughter knows that one part of her DNA does not define her. She is not bad because she is half made of a bad person. She will choose what type of person to be, and that's the important thing. Is my plan a good one? From Anonymous. Interesting. I don't have any friends. From Fucks You Forever. Well, I'll be your friend. Kush969 on Twitch. Are you real? That's a great question. I've wondered that myself. As far as I know, I'm real. My hair is AI generated. That's the only thing by my company, Satura Veritas. You can go to saturaveritas.com to learn more about my company. So yeah, I'm real. To Anonymous. From Carolyn Hacks. What a horrific experience. Yeah. I'm so sorry you've had to go through this. As healing as an honesty might seem, a 4-year-old is not ready for that. Please trust your therapist. You are an expert in your daughter, but a mental health professional is more of an expert in what 4-year-olds can handle cognitively and emotionally. You know what you're trying to say and why to protect her. To your ear, it's fine. However, to a child's ear, much of your explanation will sound like a foreign language, and so the bits she does understand, bad for example, will come to her without context. Your plan involves too many things that require too much background knowledge and emotional sophistication for her to process at her age. Kids fill in the blanks of what they don't understand with their own stories, not yours. That's true. That's how you can harm her without meaning to or even knowing you've done it. And this is why therapists versed in child development are such a valuable resource when it comes to deciding whether, when, how, and how much to share a difficult truth with kids. Experts can help you find words and ways to say them that are not only true, but also developmentally appropriate for a child to hear. Note, too, that your plan reflects what is important not to your daughter, but to you. I'm very big on honesty, quoting you. Given the betrayal by your stepfather, who I wish they'd swept right into the criminal justice system, this is understandable, and you fight for your emotional life and take earned pride in living by your principles. But you can still do that while also making your daughter's emotional well-being your top priority. Again, do trust and heed your therapist, at least enough to discuss thoroughly with her what a child of 4 needs to know and even can know. Then use that as your lens for seeing the best course of action for you both. Whew, that's a heavy one. Good advice. Yeah. Not everything we think a child can handle the child can actually handle. Captain Killswitch. What does that say? Do you smoke, Jeff? I just quit and I've been finding it hard, but this is the way. Smoking tobacco or weed? I do smoke weed sometimes. I think it should be legal, and I will legalize it as president. And we'll have a full bar and joint rolling station in the Oval Office. Don't vote for me. Tobacco, I am on a vape, Juul. I've been trying to quit it for the past maybe 3 months, and I've, gone downhill in my usage, but I'm having trouble just casting it aside. It's like a safety blanket or something. But yeah, it is difficult. But stay strong, dude. And you're right, this is the way. Kush969, what's the best life advice you can give? And you have my vote. Please don't vote for me. I've been saying that for a while. My company's AI wants to elect me, but I don't think it's fair for the American people to be brainwashed by an AI into voting for me. So I'm trying to stop it by telling people not to vote for me. And the best life advice I can give. Best life advice I can give would be don't listen to life advice from me. But if I was to give you life advice, I think it would be find comfort in uncertainty. That has served me well. Or abandon rush. I find, and that doesn't mean don't move quickly, but abandon rush means, don't get yourself all riled up that you need to finish this thing, in this certain amount of time, and then you tend to make mistakes when you're rushing, or at least I do. So, yeah. Comfort in uncertainty, abandon rush. If you're in a tough, depressed spot, remember that humor grows in the dark. So you might find some humor in your sadness, and don't judge yourself if you find humor in your sadness. I don't know. I'm just rambling. That's about the best life advice I can give. Yeah. Anything on Twitch? Captain Killswitch, stay strong on the nicotine. It's tough. They don't call it King Nicotine for nothing. Find comfort in uncertainty, yeah. Ditching Juul/smoking is difficult, but you can do it. Don't be afraid to reach out for support or resources. Always best done not alone. Oh. I didn't know there was resources for quitting Juul. That said, if Juul wants to sponsor me, I would take the money over quitting. don't vote for me. Anyway, what time is it? It is 12:38. Kush. I started smoking cigarettes when I was 14 and stopped 5 months ago. I'm 25. Lucky for weed, or I would be struggling. Yeah. Well, good for you. I'm glad you stopped smoking cigarettes. That's great. Yeah. All right, I don't know what else to say, but feel free to keep asking questions in the chat. Otherwise, I'll probably sign off here in a minute or two. Kush, good to see you, by the way. And yeah, feel free to subscribe. Trying to get to affiliate on Twitch, which means I need to up my average daily viewers. So if anyone from Reddit wants to watch on Twitch to help me do that, that would be nice. Anyway, I think I'm done for today. Last reminder, please do not vote for me. I do not want to work for you. The job seems stressful, the job of president, and technically I'm not even running for the job. I'm not running for president, so there should be no reason that you would want to vote for me in 2024, but I will keep reminding you. Anyway, thanks for watching. Willie Nelson quit tobacco by smoking a joint every time he wanted a cigarette. I don't think that I could get anything done if I did that, but it's not the worst, not the worst idea. Anyway, hope you're well too, Kush, and peace.